All right. So this is what I call consistent noble knights. You could call it bare bones noble knights or OTK noble knights because you can OTK with the deck. So for my list, I have whittled this down to literally the bare essentials. Now, I have been considering flipping out Rhoda for two brothers, but honestly, I'll get to it later, but Brothers is more of a late game thing. Sometimes he can help you in your opening hand if you don't get like a really good hand because he can throw two monsters down. Like he can pull another monster out with him, but um I'm for now I kind of like Rhoda, so I've been keeping it in there. It's just super handy to be able to pick any of the monsters I want. So say I want a Brothers to pull out two monsters from my hand because I don't have anything else I can do, or say I want him a drought. I can pick both of those. Um, Depending on the situation. Now, I mean, I can do that with Merlin, but if you use Merlin to search out brothers, I mean, then you can't get brothers effect. But yeah, so just gonna go through the deck list real quick. We got two Madrouts, we have one Driston, three Merlins, one Brothers, and one Boars, and those are pretty much all of your usable monsters. I do have Guinevere here, but I more count her as an equip spell. I very, very rarely, if ever, put her on the field. That can hurt you more than help you. But since I built this deck, I've actually not put her on the field a single time. I've not, I've not had such a bad hand that the only option I have is to put down Guinevere. You know, because most of the time, if she's not in my like, if I got a completely dead hand and Guinevere was the only monster, that's like the only time I would set her. If it's more than the first turn, she's more than likely going to already be in the graveyard. So don't really count her as a monster, even though technically she is. And out of the let's see, yeah, eight monsters, you're only going to be using one, two, three, four, five of them on the field. Merlin is pretty much you summon him, you kill him, and then you search. So search cards for monsters. I have one, two, three, four, five, six. Six cards to search out monsters. Unless you count Madrout, which then there'd be eight. But Madrout is one of the monsters I would be searching for. So, again, not really counting him as a search card, though technically he is. Um, but yeah, moving on for the monsters, we have one Guinevere, and then, of course, we have one reinforcement of the army because you can only run it at one. We have three parallel twisters, three Glory of the Noble Knights, one Caliburn, one Gallatin, and two Until Noble Arms are needed once again. Now, the reason I'm not running Destiny is it just slows you down. um, with the way I've built this deck, I'm not too afraid of the monsters getting destroyed. The way it's set up or the way I play it, I cycle through everything, so I'm not too worried about destruction, protection. What I want is to make the deck as fast as possible, so in the best case scenario, you can one turn kill. Second best scenario, two turn kill, which I'll explain that later. And we do have options to keep it going, though, if it's a long drawn out thing, which is where Brothers comes in. Extremely, extremely important to include that card if you're running so few of this, because you're going to need to use his effect to flip all of your stuff back into the deck so that you can keep going. Because you will run out of resources pretty much instantly if you don't have brothers. Like, yeah. And the reason I'm running my droughts at 2 is so that I can have more chances to either get a Rhoda or a Merlin. If I get a Rhoda or a Merlin, I'm making my deck smaller because those can still technically count as Madrout draws, but minusing one off the deck. That's the whole reason also I'm going really heavy into the search for the equips and only running one of each, because it's more beneficial to search out the equip spell than it is to just draw the equip spell. And on top of that, this gives you the option to do stuff like with Driston, Like with Dristan here, you can, have Dristan on the field, have this set, and during your opponent's turn, equip Dristan with something and blow up one of your opponent's monsters. Um, for the extra deck, I'm running 3 of this guy. I don't, is that Kustanen? I don't know how to say his name. I can't pronounce any of the extra deck guys, but this dude, most important one, run 3 of him. Because more often than not, with the way this deck is, he's going to be just about the one that you're pulling out more than anything else. And that's the whole reason. If you get bricked with just monsters, then you still have plays because you can throw this guy in defense. When he dies, he'll just immediately pull out one of your other guys. So you aren't as dependent on the equip spells with this setup as you are with a typical Noble Knights deck, in my opinion, if you're running 3 of these guys. Then, of course, I got 2 of the Sacred Noble Knight of King Artorgius. 1 Artorgius, King of the Noble Knights, just because, in my opinion, he's the least useful of the Xyz monsters, just because when he dies, he doesn't bring anything back. Although I still keep him in the extra deck for occasions where I'm going up against something like Gravekeepers, because Gravekeepers will completely shut the deck down. You can't, no card can leave the graveyard once it goes there, so you're going to have something like Artorgius if you can't respond with a Parallel Twister. And then, of course, I'm running the Gaga Cowboy. So remember I mentioned that if you can't OTK, you can 2-turn kill. If the OTK setup doesn't work out just right and you end up with like 300, because a lot of times I'll end up with like just 300 attacks short if I can't get Guinevere on the guy, then I can just go into Gaga Cowboy next turn and finish him off. So he's really handy to have in there. Parallel Twister is extremely good in this deck, and that is why I'm using Light Barrier, which I guess I'll back out real quick and show you. I'm using Sartorius. Which this wasn't my idea. I was looking up some decks on Duel Links meta. Sorry, took me a second. I was looking up decks on Duel Links meta and I saw this and I was like, that's a good idea. So it's just like one of those normal abilities that you start off with a field spell and play. But the nice thing about his field spell is that it doesn't really do anything to the field at all, and it's in face down. So it's just cannon fodder that is immediately put on the field for you to use Parallel Twister. And another bonus is that it doesn't go to the field until your first turn. So if you go turn 2, it's not on the field. They can't blow it up until your turn, if they were going to blow it up before your turn. So I run these at 3 because Noble Knight's biggest weakness is stopping out, like, say I summon Merlin or Madrout and then you just immediately flip them face down. Like, that just screws me up. So having Parallel Twisters at 3, I have a higher likelihood of opening with one in my hand, and because of Light Barrier, I can blow up the back row before there's any option or any potential for that to happen. And I know you're like, well, why don't you just run Mystical Space Typhoon? Well, there's multiple benefits to Parallel Twister. You can use it to destroy these trap cards because you want these in the graveyard so you can summon up more monsters. Or you can use these to just destroy a monster. Say that instead of having back row, they have a monster on the field that's going to immediately activate effect and stop anything you're going to do during your turn. Well, blow it up. So it gives you more options. It's generally not that difficult to use it with this deck anyways, because you almost always get an equip spell, this trap card, you start off with the field. I've been in very rare instances where I couldn't use a Parallel Twister. And, worst case scenario, said that you've already got your equip spells, and, if you have search cards in your hand, like, the Glory of the Noble Knights or the Reinforcement of the Army, you can always set those down to destroy them for this as well, because eventually they'll become dead cards, but I don't normally just toss them to the side like that, because I can flip the stuff they search back into the deck with Brothers, and then they're no longer dead cards in my hand. So, If you're to the point that these are dead cards, you're generally doing good, unless you somehow run through all of your resources. Like I said, you can do 2 variants. You can ditch the reinforcement army and maybe run 2 brothers. Like I said, I've been considering that because I have been in a few instances where it's been a little difficult to keep recycling brothers out. Because this guy, when he, like, the main strategy is when this guy dies, he pulls out this guy, and you do what you can with him, but when he dies, he can pull a monster back out of the graveyard, which then I try my best to go for brothers and keep him alive, so then I can cycle my monsters back into the deck again, over and over and over, and keep trying to keep that cycle going without dying. But, yeah, the reason I'm only running these 2 is because these are the 2 you need for an OTK. You see, you can't use a Noble Arms card with the same name at the same time. So if I were trying to run 2 Galatons, I can still only use 1 at a time. So I might as well just use 1 Caliburn and 1 Galaton. Caliburn is really handy. Said that you've opened with a search card and you have a drought. I would use the search card first to go for Caliburn, because you can just keep adding up your life points. It doesn't give you as much attack as Galaton, but it has saved me oftentimes from an OTK, because right off the bat, I can add 1,000 or 1,500 attack to my life points. Sorry, not attack. I can add 1,000 or 1,500 life points to me first turn. And so anybody that's trying to do they've got it set up where they have 4,000 really quick and can somehow get through your monsters, then that's it. Weaknesses of this deck are anything that's going to flip your crap back to your hand, or banish your stuff. So Necros and Harpy Lady are definitely not 2 decks you want to run into. And of course Gravekeepers, but Gravekeepers shut down a lot of stuff just because they shut down the graveyard there. But I feel like out of those 3, the worst one to run into is someone who knows how to play Necros. Because that's just like, of all the decks in the entire game, no matter what deck I'm running, that's the one that I just seem to have the hardest time figuring out how to counter. But yeah, I'm going to go through some... I got 2 replays here just to show the deck in action. So let's see. This one's a little older, but this is showing how the OTK works. So if you're going for OTK, going second is a good option.
On anyone. You will learn how foolish.
And this is a really good hand here because I've got Merlin, and I've got a Parallel Twister,
Duel.
and I've got Search for an equip, and I've got Caliburn.
Double D Savant Kepler. I activate Double D Savant Kepler's effect.
It's been a long time since I recorded this or saved this replay. I just played it and fast forward for a minute to see if I had any of my OTK saved. But
Dark Contract with the Gates effect activates.
I'm just gonna go ahead and fast forward through his turn.
Observe what I Pendulum Summon a monster.
I can't really give good
Triple D. I'll set a card.
Good playback what he's doing. So he hits 1 card
Go
set.
ahead and rebuild.
So I'm gonna immediately use Parallel Twister to get that out of my way, just in case.
From my hand, I activate a spell.
And that was a good move because that's Treacherous Trap Hole that would have totally screwed me up. So I'm gonna use Merlin to pull out my drought.
I special summon a monster.
And then I'm gonna equip him with Caliburn.
I activate an equips. I activate
Go
an
ahead and get
spell.
500 life points.
My monster's effect.
Then activate the drought's effect to pull out Boars.
I special summon a.
Then re-equip Caliburn to Boars.
I activate
Boars. Oh, activate the equip spell. Get another 500 life points. Then activate Boars, which will throw Guinevere and my 2 traps into the graveyard.
From my hand.
Then I'm going to go ahead and use the the search card for the equip spell. Glory of the Noble Knights. Then Xyz.
I
And then he's gonna equip both of those
monster's
equip spells
effect
back to himself.
activates. I activate an equip spell.
Then Guinevere's gonna equip to
My
him.
monster's effect activates.
After I get 500 life
My
points,
monster's effect
he's gonna destroy the monster and then attack in for
Let's
4,000.
battle. If you only accepted your destiny.
Now, there are certain times where you may not be able to get 2 equipped spells on the monsters before you Xyz, and so you'll have to use Guinevere to go into the Xyz. And since you can only use her effect once per turn, you won't be able to put her back on the Xyz, so you'll be at 3,700 attack instead of 4,000. And in that case, that's when the next turn you would go into Gaga Cowboy and finish him off. Hey there, Fox of Doom 94. What's up? I'm streaming, but I'm also recording a YouTube video. So I was gonna just highlight
Well
this
done.
and then export
You
it to YouTube. I was going over my deck list. Just about done. I was gonna play one more replay. This one's from tonight. I'm doing good. A little frustrated trying to get to the KC Cup. Alright, now this is an example of the deck when it goes long term and how it can just keep recycling and keep going even if its stuff gets destroyed over and over and over.
You will learn how foolish it is to defy your destiny.
Duel! Time to hunt! It's my turn! Ha! I activate the equipped spell Galaxy Zero!
So
Say hello to Galaxy Eyes!
he's gonna do his
Photon
thing
Dragon!
and set up his field.
The universe coalesces into the light of chaos! Neo!
I haven't seen too many of these guys just using one monster for
I
HP.
set a code. I end my turn. You're up.
I know. I don't just. I draw.
And I don't have a parallel twister this time, so I took the risk,
I
and
activate
I
an
don't
I
think he
activate
stopped
and
me.
equip my monster's effect activates.
And I didn't get a really great setup because you don't want to draw boars. So, but if you do draw boars, you kind of
My
want to put them out
monster's
there so that
effect
you can set up the
activates.
graveyard and everything. So I went ahead and went with boars, and I used Guinevere's effect to just destroy his monster.
Attack.
At this moment,
And this guy could have totally stopped me
Activate an
there,
equip spell.
but he chose to destroy Caliburn
My
instead of
monster's
Guinevere,
effect
which is
activates.
really
I
lucky
end
for
my
me.
turn.
my turn. I draw. You'll pay for. I activate the equipped spell.
So he's going to set up his
Zero.
field
You
again,
cannot
and I'm going to
change
use the
fate.
trap card to
My
pull out
trap
Driston,
activates.
and then I'm going to use the
Say hello
search
to-
card for the equip spell to quit
Destiny
Driston
laughs at
with
me.
an equip spell,
I
and then
use
blow
my
up his
face
monster.
down card. You cannot change fate. My
From my
monster's
hand,
effect activates.
I activate my spell.
Which he's still going to be able to come back. This guy
The
came back
radiance
so
of
many
the solar
times.
system guides me to a new world. The new embodied. Photon Dragon uses an overlay unit to get rid of a card.
But luckily I can put my
Galaxy
equip
Franco
spells on
Big C's
the
Evolution.
Driston. I think he still destroyed it and then attacked me.
Come on out. I use one overlay unit to place
Yep.
Psycho I play
So I was
Galaxy
wide
Eyes
open.
Let's battle.
But luckily he couldn't
Galaxy Eyes
OTK me.
Psycho Dragon attacks.
This
Say
changes
first, I end my
nothing.
turn.
You will not
Get on
change.
with it. It's your turn.
What did I do here? I can't remember.
I summon a monster
I just
in
did this
attack
duel
position.
and I can't remember how it went.
My
Alright,
monster's
pulling out
effect
Merlin.
activates.
And I'm gonna go for a drought.
My monster's
Equip
effect
him with
activates. My
Guinevere.
monster's effect. I shall play this.
Pull out
I spend
brothers.
My monster's effect.
And use brothers to
activates.
cycle my cards back into the deck because I need to use them again.
From my hand.
Then use the search
Activate
card.
a quick play spell.
And I put Caliburn on
activate an
him just so I
equip
could gain an
spell.
extra 500 life points here. Then went into the Xyz.
I activate an equip
Then used
spell.
Caliburn's
I activate
effect
my
again to
monster's
get another
effect
500 life
activates.
points to try to keep
Setting
myself
a
alive
card.
because I knew he was going to somehow bring his crap back
Do not
again
fight. I
and
end my
battle
turn.
over me.
Your strategies aren't bad. I draw! Come out! Galaxy Wizard! I tribute Galaxy Wizard to activate its effect!
which he did. He pulled out
I
the monster.
activate
And there
the
was another
eclipse
point
spell.
right here he could have killed me,
Neo.
but he didn't.
Radiance
If he had just
solar
attacked in
system
with that guy,
guides me to a
I'd have
new
been over.
world.
But instead, he went into this dude
Photon Dragon uses
and then
overload.
destroyed my monster,
cannot
which allowed me to take no damage
See
this
sidewise.
round.
Ix destiny laughs at you. My monster's effect activates.
Rank up Xyz evolution. Come on
Of
out.
course, he's gonna rank up again,
I use
and then
one
blow
overload to play
up him.
Cypher Blade
But I went ahead and
Dragon's
activated the trap so I
use my
could
face down
get a
card.
free draw and put
My
that in the
trap
graveyard.
activates.
And then, of course, I used him to pull out brothers to protect my life points.
Galaxy Eye Cypher. I end
I
my
draw.
turn.
Witness what fate has in store.
So
for
pull out
you.
my drought,
My monster's
use
effect.
Guinevere again,
My monster's
use
effect.
my drought's effect, pull out boars,
Witness what
go
fate
into
has in
these,
store.
and I put it in defense just in
my
case
monster's effect.
to not leave myself
I end
open like
my
I did
turn.
last
You
time
haven't
because there wasn't any
defeated
hope
me.
of me
I draw.
finishing him off.
I
Anyways,
set a code. I activate my spell card.
and
I end
he
my
ended up with
turn.
nothing. So,
I
but
my
that's how
monster's effect
you can keep
activate.
recycling your
Monster's
resources,
effect
even though you have
activates.
barely any of them with this deck.
My
To keep everything
monster's
going.
effect
I used
activates.
Driston's
I
own
shall
effect
play
to
this.
blow up my
Ix,
own guy so that I
monster's
could
effect
increase my life points a little
activates.
bit more just in case
I
something stopped
activated
me.
time to now.
But nothing.
I've never
I like,
encountered a strategy
and
that
sorry,
simple.
I meant to respond there. I like Noble Knights. They did get hurt, obviously, when they nerfed balance, but the deck list I have going right here is, in my opinion, really consistent. The thing I think everyone's getting wrong with trying to build Noble Knights decks is that they aren't willing to let go of everything. Thank you for the follow. But yeah, they aren't willing to let go of a lot of the cards. This is my deck list, and like I'm only running 2 equip spells, like 1 copy of each of these. I've only got 2 Madrouts, and only 1 of Driston, Brothers, and Boars, and of course Guinevere. So technically 3 equip spells, but yeah, did everything I could to get this deck all the way down to 20 and just be practically nothing but search cards to try to make it as consistent as possible since you can't use balance anymore. And I think it works pretty well. Except last night, I tried to do a stream last night and it's like, I got nothing but dead hands. Yet the recycling power can be good as long as your monsters keep getting destroyed. If your opponent's not actively destroying your monsters, having only 1 brothers can be a hindrance. And so like you could take out reinforcement army and put in a 2nd brothers. But right now the strategy is like, you know, use brothers obviously the first time he hits the field, and then you go into, I don't know how to say this, Custaninin. And if Custaninin dies, you go into Artorgus, and if Artorgus dies, you pull out brothers and try to recycle more into the deck. And hopefully keep that cycle going of this guy dies, bring him out, recycle, rebuild this guy, then that guy dies, this guy dies, bring him back out, recycle. But it can be disrupted. You have to really, really keep track of all the cards in your deck. You really have to pay attention to what your opponent's doing, and you really have to think through everything with being so short on actual resources in the deck itself. It can just keep going as long as you don't screw up. There's a lot of room to screw up, which I was running into last night, and even today I lost about 3 duels just from my own mistakes. Like, it is way, way easier to make a mistake with this deck. But if you don't make a mistake, it's pretty good. And at least it's not, like, completely random. Like, with most Noble Knight decks, it's like you'll win if you get a good hand, you'll lose if you get a bad hand. And it's like a 50-50 chance if you'll get a good or a bad hand. With this, I feel like there's more of a chance you'll get a good hand. So but you're more likely to lose from your own mistake. Yeah, Necro Valley is. That's why I keep one of the Artorgius, King of the Noble Knights. He's sort of my response to Necro Valley. Plus, I'm running 3 parallel twisters, and and Dristan could respond to it. So I have a lot of cards that can destroy Necro Valley just for that matchup. But also, parallel twister can destroy any card on the field. So this is good for your matchups also with like Harpy Ladies, because they just flip the monsters back into the deck. Like the whole recycle combo is totally screwed up if they just flip the monster back into your deck. So getting rid of that Harpy Lady synchro is really important, and Parallel Twister helps a lot with that. Because her ability, like, it's just terrible for Noble Knights. It pops off the moment you activate a spell. And most of these effects have to have a spell to use them, which is why Guinevere is still the most important of all the equipped spells, because she doesn't count as a spell. So, put down Dristan, tag her onto him, and then you can get rid of that synchro. But, you may not be able to do that. So I've also got the Parallel Twister, and if I can say I had Brothers in my hand and another one of these cards, I could use Brothers effect to pull 2 on the field, and then just go into Artorgius. I mean, not Artorgius, sorry. Go into Custeninin if I want to flip her back to the hand, or Artorgius if I want to get rid of Necro Valley. So you're most of the time going to be mostly just, wow, I said mostly twice. Most of the time you're just going to be using the rank 4s. If you're pulling out the 5, like if you're going directly into a rank 5 Xyz, it's usually turn 1 when you're using Madrout and Boars to get the field set up. After that, you're pretty much only going to be rank 4 Xyzing. Thank you. I put a lot of work into this, but it was the last KC Cup that I built this deck, and I haven't really played since then, so I've been trying to figure out what the current meta is and everything.